Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Zen Educate, I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to our webinar this afternoon, which focuses very much on how we promote early reading through the use of synthetic phonics in our practice. As I said, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. This event is due to finish at 6 o'clock, and it is very much supposed to be an interactive, collaborative, supportive webinar that we're here to sort of learn together and learn from one another. So I look forward throughout to your contributions through the chat box and through the question and answer area of this webinar, and actually that we can have real sort of professional discussions between us. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Vicky Gould. I am a primary school teacher. I've been a primary school teacher predominantly in upper key stage 2 for around 15 years. And in 2005, I became head of a rather large teacher training organisation here in the Northwest. So then switched to delivering and training adults to become teachers. And most recently, I have become self-employed educationalist consultant and do quite a lot of advisory work with Zen Educate. So that's a little bit about me. And we also have joining us today my colleague Ross, who is in the background. He's going to introduce himself. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. Hi, everyone. So to introduce myself, my name is Ross, and I work in the marketing department for Zen Educate, and I coordinate the events. So I've tutored in my spare time since 2015 in maths and the sciences. So I've got a real love for education. So that's why I'm doing marketing for Zen Educate. And basically, I'm going to be helping out in the background today, helping Vicky field some of the questions and helping out with some of the technicalities in the background and forwarding the comments and questions to Vicky. So before we kick off, everyone, just to let you know that, you may know already, Zen Educate is a social enterprise and a DFE accredited in providing high quality supply teachers and TAs. And we're proud to say that we're now an accredited NTP provider. And as such, we're running this workshop on phonics today, just to ensure that our tutors and teachers have an up-to-date knowledge of the curriculum in order to deliver NTP sessions confidently. So before we start, as just a bit of a reminder, you can connect with us via Twitter or Facebook, and we like to share informative and useful information, blogs, things like that on Twitter and Facebook. There are the handles if you'd like to do that. And we also share news of future workshops which we're holding, including the second of this two-part NTP series, which will be on the 12th of October, which is on reading comprehension. So really good things to connect with us on. Also, if you'd like to contact us, you can always contact us via teachwithus@zeneducate.com. So time for me to hand you over back to Vicky now, and I hope you really enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, so I wanted to start off by actually saying thank you for joining us. And when I was planning this session, it is fair to say that actually I was thinking about the fact that on this session we will have very experienced professionals and educators who know a lot and have a wealth of knowledge about phonics and how to deliver quality phonics to children. But we'll also have perhaps trainee teachers on here, early career teachers, and we'll also have colleagues that actually have no knowledge of phonics. So bearing all that in mind, I really hope that you take something away from this event. And actually, we're all here to learn together, and I truly believe that collaboration and partnership is the key to success in this profession. The kinds of things things we're going to look at. We're going to look at key statistics underpinning high quality phonics. We're going to look at the most recent research and recommendations from Ofsted and the Department for Education. We're also going to have a look at some key terminology associated with phonics. And towards the end of the session, I'm hoping you find this quite interesting, we're going to watch a very short snippet of an early career teacher actually delivering a session to a year one class. And we're going to start to look at and unpick and evaluate actually what went well in the lesson, and actually as educators, how we could improve that particular practice. So I'm hoping you can take something away from this event, regardless of your background, your experience, your knowledge. So I always start off my training by putting it into context. And this is where I'm going to do that. I want to start off by saying every child deserves a champion. And actually, children only get one shot at education. And in my experience as an upper key stage 2 teacher, actually, if you lose them during the primary stage of their education, the majority of the time, we will never get them back. So education is the engine of our economy, of our culture. And if we get the foundations of reading and strong literacy skills right, every child will have the resilience to overcome challenge and succeed in their adulthood. And to me, successful individuals and communities and societies are underpinned by that quality of education. And let's face it, our children are living in an ever complex world, influenced by a range of pressures such as social media. So it's more essential than ever that our children are prepared to bring knowledge and skills to solve problems and make informed decisions in order to adapt and articulate their ideas. Children who don't read, who can't read, cannot do all of that. So we're going to think about next, actually, thank you, Ross. Why is reading so important? And today we'll look at the mechanics of reading and the foundations of reading. And I'll also be sharing with you a document that's just been published by the Department for Education, which is called the Reading Framework, Teaching the Foundation of Literacy. And I will be summarising some of those key aspects in order to inform your practice. So we know that over the last 2 decades, there has been a deepening recognition of the fundamental importance for improving reading standards. And we also know that since 2010, the government has sought to embed effective teaching of phonics to raise literacy standards. And they also brought in the statutory phonics screening test for our year one teachers, year one children in 2012, all of which actually become a measure for our practice and our teaching of phonics. But I want to know from you, colleagues, to you, why is reading so important? And I'm going to ask you to share your ideas via the chat. I'm just going to pinch some of your ideas and read them out. So why is reading so important? Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate your contribution. It's the foundation of all learning. It helps with learning. To communicate. It improves confidence. It enhances thinking and independence. It does indeed provide children with the ability to access all of the curriculum, self-esteem, enhances critical thinking, amazing, for fulfillment. cognitive development. Gives children a sense of empowerment. Broadens culture and understanding. Influences better writers. Helps them to recall information. Creativity. Expands their imagination. Enhances the quality of their lives. Thank you so much for that, colleagues. Some really good ideas there. In my opinion, every child should be a reader. It is the vehicle for them having a successful, independent, and fulfilling life. It enables them to have choices, to embrace themselves in more complex careers and more fulfilling careers. And it absolutely changes that perspective of a diverse culture. It breaks down barriers. It enables our children to become more successful and happier citizens in adult life. Thank you, Rob. Okay, before we have a look at some other further research and evidence, I wanted to share with you actually some sources of support for colleagues to draw upon when you are delivering phonics. And here they are, just some key documents that have been written by various different professionals to help you with your delivery of phonics. So we have the early years foundation stage, we have development matters, we have our third bullet point, which is all about inclusion and actually how to best provide for our children with special educational needs. That's very dear to my heart, as I have a child with complex needs. So it's really important that we understand those statutory requirements and that framework for including our children who potentially have speech and language difficulties. Another place that we can go to, colleagues, and this is a really useful place, is our DFE's English hubs, which are made up of various different professionals. And in your school, you are eligible to actually tap into the resources compiled by the English hubs. And they provide support for you as colleagues. They provide support for action planning. They provide materials like reading audits and phonic audits. And you can also secure some funding for your school for resources through the English hubs. And I would also say the final bullet point, a great place to start to explore good practice is with the Education Endowment Foundation framework and resources. Will help you with your school improvement planning as well. So really helpful sources of support there for you colleagues that I'm hoping that you'll find useful. Okay, so it does matter. And I'm just going to read you this quote that one of my trainee teachers who for last year, she said this to me, and it really resonated with me. And she said, I realized in a whiplash burst that those children, all mine for 1 year, might never that all of our children are given the chance to be fluent readers. It is the key to unlocking the rest of the curriculum, which relies heavily on reading and writing and language development and proficiency. It develops empathy and moral character. And I think, colleagues, that we should all aim for every child to have quality early literacy, regardless of their background, ethnicity, level of disadvantage, and other variables such as being a boy born in the summer term. I hope one day that all of these factors should bear little significance on their ability to read and be successful adults. Thank you, Ross. I just like this. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. And that's what we do, colleagues. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. Thanks, Ross. I'm going to share with you some statistics now, and they are quite, in my eyes, shocking statistics. Some researchers in the US looked at the impact of parents reading with their children, and these were the findings. By the time a child was 5, if they were never read to, a 5-year-old would have around 4,500 words in their vocab. If they were read to 1 to 2 times a week, they would have around 63,500 words in their vocabulary. 3 to 5 times a week, 169,000. If they were read to daily, 296,000 words in their vocabulary. And more regularly than that, you can see the statistics. And I think that's a really telling piece of research there. Anybody got any comments about that? Anybody feel the same as me when I read it? Kathy agrees. I'm sad. Profound. Heartbreaking. I'm not reading enough to my own children. I feel the same. Surprised. Shocking. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Ross. Okay, some more statistics now. And I want to know any comments or anything that takes you by surprise here. So children living in the poorest families and the most deprived communities are still at a huge advantage. 4 out of 10 children on free school meals are not able to read well by the age of 11. There's a huge link between poor literacy and unemployment. And the Department for Justice says the link between academic failure is directly linked to crime and violence. Children with reading difficulties are at greater risk of mental health problems, including depression and behavioural problems, anger and aggression. And it does suggest here that studies have shown that children who read for pleasure have higher levels of self-esteem and a greater ability to cope. Anybody got anything to say about that? unacceptable. Children must have extra support to bridge that gap. Everybody needs and is entitled to learn how to read. Every child matters. Really does put it into context. It should be a stress-free and rewarding activity for all children. Okay, thank you, Ross. Okay, so before we have a look at some key terminology associated with phonics, I wanted to show you this diagram, and many of you may have already seen this diagram, but it's a very simple way to show you what a competent reader should look like. A competent reader should have good language comprehension and good word reading. And those two dimensions go hand in hand. And this particular drawing that was actually created in 1986 drew up sort of this diagram consisting of 2 axes and 4 quadrants. The horizontal axis represents word reading and the vertical axis represents language comprehension. And actually we'll be exploring that dimension more so, as Ross said at the beginning, on the 12th of October, which I'm looking forward to. Children need both of these to become fluent and competent readers. And actually, both require a different sort of teaching. In the respect of early reading, children's understanding of a language should be developed deliberately. And actually, colleagues, for our early years and Key Stage 1 practice, we must deliberately plan opportunities for children to listen to each other, to speak with one another, and we must recognise, even before formal teaching of phonics, we must recognise the importance of early talk, of allowing children to have and endure and have quality planned talking opportunities. Creating those opportunities will build on children's sense of nurture and value. It will build on their self-esteem. It will get them ready for formal teaching of phonics. And actually, it starts with a language-rich environment. It starts with an exposure to creative text, to poetry, to song, and to actually celebrate all of these things and create those opportunities for quality talk before phonics is introduced. I read something today, a quote, and I actually liked it. Reading and writing float on the sea of talk. And that's really quite true. That's from the Early Excellence Research documentation. So even before formal phonics is taught, we must be thinking about those opportunities. So our young children, before they start school and as they come into preschool, how many opportunities are we giving them for structured exposure to listening and speaking and having opportunities to talk in meaningful and diverse contexts with a range of different children and adults? Something for us to think about when we're planning prior to them having those formal lessons in phonics. Thank you, Rob. Right, so very simply, let's strip it back. We're going to talk about phonics. First of all, what is phonics? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? I'm going to ask you to have a little think about that and feedback to me, colleagues. So what is phonics? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? Now, you can either share your thoughts with me through the chat, or indeed if you would like to talk at this point, just type in, I would like to talk, and hopefully Ross will be able to unmute you. So what is phonics? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? Anybody like to talk? Just type in, I would like to talk. Phonics teach sounds and letters to make a word. A method of teaching children to read. Why? To enable children to become fluent, to build speaking skills, blending of letters, helps children pronounce words. First steps to reading. Decoding. Using visuals too. Representation of language. Sound out of the letters. Demonstrating the relationship between sounds and words. Okay, thank you very much. Here are my thoughts. So what is phonics? Phonics is a body of knowledge. Sorry, let me just get rid of this. There we go. Okay, phonics to me is a body of knowledge that's necessary for children to learn to read and spell. It teaches children explicit correspondences between letters and sounds, as well as the skills for them to blend sounds together. Synthetic phonics refers to the verb synthesize, which means combined. It's all about the skills of segmenting words into the individual sounds. We've talked about the why earlier on, so I'm going to jump straight to the how. And this is straight from Ofsted's latest recommendations in a report that was published in 2021, July this year. They recommend that we, colleagues, deliver daily phonics for 10 minutes at first in reception. And by the end of the reception, they should be receiving an hour's worth of phonics every day. We, when teaching phonics, should be clear about our objectives. We should expect all children to participate. These are all thinking points for us when we're planning our phonics. We should maximize the time. We should demonstrate new learning in bite-sized chunks and consolidate previous learning so that children can access this learning automatically and they can practice and apply. We should assess. We should recap. We should ensure that our learning spaces and teaching spaces are quiet and well organized. And actually, I was reading during that report, Ofsted suggests that the research has found that highly decorated walls undermine children's ability to absorb new information, which is an interesting point. We should have highly focused practical activities that are focused on the main learning goal. We should provide little opportunities for overlearning, that constant recall, retrieve, practice, apply. In this report, Ofsted also suggested that poor classroom routines can get in the way of delivery of high quality phonics. They also argue that children, when they cannot see the teacher's face or resources, will not fully engage. They also said, which I thought was really interesting, sitting on the floor and writing on a mini whiteboard does not necessarily help children learn and develop their writing skills in phonics. They should be holding a pencil and forming letters correctly, which is a very interesting, albeit controversial point. Thank you, Ross. Okay, we probably are all, excuse me, familiar with the Rose Review, which was done in 2006, a piece of research, very interesting read, suggests that we should teach phonics discreetly, that we should set this within a broad and rich language curriculum, that it should be multisensory, and of course, quality first teaching should be at the core in order to minimize that risk of children falling behind. Okay, I'm now going to show you a video that really does describe the key terminology associated with phonics. Whenever I worked with trainee teachers in my previous role, I used to ask them, how do you feel about teaching phonics? And then very often they'd say, I feel very nervous. And the main reason why they felt nervous in the majority of the time was because phonics has its own language. It has its own key terminology specific to this discipline. And new teachers and unexperienced phonics teachers find this quite daunting, actually. So I thought it might be useful for us to either refresh as experienced teachers or indeed introduce as newly qualified teachers or teaching assistants who are new to the teaching of phonics. I hope you don't find this video too daunting. There will be a summary slide after this short clip. Thank you, guys. Ross, I can't hear it. I don't know whether other people.
We call these sounds phonemes.
Sorry about that.
Like all languages, English has an agreed. My job is to make college easier because students have plates. Like Harper, an econ major who
Sorry about this, colleagues. Joys of technology. There we go, Ross.
Sorry, everyone.
Thank you.
Phonics is a way of teaching children to read and write. Here's how it works. English is made up of around 44 different sounds. We call these sounds phonemes. Like all languages, English has an agreed code for how we write these sounds down. Each phoneme, each sound, can be represented by one or more letters. The letters and groups of letters that represent a sound are called graphemes. G, A, D, E, N. Garden. Sometimes the grapheme representing a phoneme is represented by just one letter, G or D. But sometimes it's more than one letter that represents a single sound. It might be two letters, Ah. This is called a digraph. Sometimes a phoneme is represented by three letters. This is called a trigraph. Such as the I in delightful, or the air in fairy. Many letters or groups of letters, graphemes, represent different sounds in different words. Where a particular grapheme corresponds to a particular phoneme in a written word, is called a grapheme-phoneme correspondence. Take the A sound, for example. In different words, the A sound might be represented by any of these graphemes. A, acorn. Play, snail, pale, they, veil, eight, break, straight. When we know which sounds the different graphemes represent, we can read the separate graphemes in a word and then put them together to read the whole word. This is called blending. For example, let's take dog. This word is made up of 3 graphemes. D, O, G. If we blend them together, we get dog. G, A, D. Here we have 2 digraphs. G, A, D. Guard. Guard. Guard dog. Guard dog. That guard dog. Oh. Ah! When we're showing children how to read a word, we can help them by using the sounds rather than the letter names. So saying R, O, G, rather than FROG. We can also try and use pure sounds. Try not to add an sound on the end. So O, G, rather than F-R-O, G. That way, when children blend the letters to read them, they say F-R-O-G, frog, rather than F-R-O-G, frogger. Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. Sometimes the 2 letters that make up a digraph, 2 letters that together represent a particular sound, don't sit next to each other in a word. For example, the A and E in snake are separated by the K, but they're still a digraph. The A and E together represent the long A sound, so we read S, N, A, K, rather than S, N, A, K, E. We read N, I, S, nice, rather than N, I, K, E. We read huge, huge, rather than E. When we're using our knowledge of phonics to spell a word, we can use the same concepts, but in reverse. We think of the word we want to spell and try to identify the phonemes that make up the word. This is called segmenting. But spelling a word isn't quite as simple as matching one phoneme to one grapheme. Often there are different ways of representing a particular sound. There's more than one phoneme-grapheme correspondence. Take the owl sound, for example. Owl, howl. Owl, house. Owl, bow. If we wanted to write flower, we could write flower, or flower, or flower. Because the different sounds in a word can be represented in more than one way, English is sometimes portrayed as being irregular. But actually, if you delve a little below the surface, there is a system there, and learning the code that underpins English is a useful way to start learning to spell. Learning all these different grapheme-phoneme correspondences can take a bit of practice, but it's something all children will be taught at school when they're first learning to read and spell. And with practice, they'll no longer need to sound out the individual phonemes. They'll be fluent readers. Of course, they might still need to draw on their phonic knowledge occasionally if they come across an unfamiliar word, as anyone who's tried to read a book about dinosaurs to a 5-year-old will know all too well. Looking for smaller dinosaurs to prey on was a streptospondylus. Sometimes, even when we've read the word out loud, we might still not know what it means. We need to match the word to the language we know already. Reading is about being able to decode the words on the page and understand their meaning. That's why, as well as practicing phonics to improve their word reading, it's so important for children to listen to and enjoy books they can't yet read by themselves. Learning to unlock the code that underpins English is an important step in a child becoming a confident and fluent reader. And once they have this skill, they'll be well equipped to read, whether that's enjoying books as the wonderful sources of entertainment and information that they are, or reading for purely practical reasons.
Wonderful. And I also really appreciate it.
I'm Talon, and this is Rumpus.
Sorry. I also really appreciate it that actually, as that was going on, colleagues were sharing their ideas and their thoughts, and also offering different kind of resources and the schemes that they've come across, and useful tips and support. I really, truly appreciate that. So thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Ross. Next one. I wanted to show you this. This is a list of validated systematic synthetic phonics programs. Okay, this list has been taken directly from the Reading Framework Teaching the Foundation of Literacy, which is a document that I've referred to a couple of times during this session that Ofsted have recently published. And these are all the validated programs. Now, the reason why I share with you this list is because when I've gone into schools most recently, and they've had inspections either by Ofsted or their own sort of self-evaluations, they have been questioned why they have not been using one of these as a recommended, validated approach and program to teaching phonics. So they're here for you. These are the validated approaches and programs. You can obviously find a lot more information out there on the internet about these different programs. And the other thing that just a huge tip for you, I follow a group, a phonics group on Facebook, and it's a live group, and different colleagues have dipped into different parts and different programs listed here, and they share and evaluate their experiences. But just a heads up that actually when Ofsted come through and inspectors come through schools, they will be asking which one of these validated programs are you using and how you found it, and if you are not, then why not? That's just something for us to bear in mind. Thank you, Ross. Right, this just summarizes all of the key terminology that was displayed during that video for us. And as I said, I've worked with lots of trainee teachers and early career teachers, and the biggest barrier is their understanding their subject knowledge of the code and the key terminology associated with phonics. So this is just a summary of that video. But also, aside from that, prior to this workshop, you were sent a list of resources that I put together and Zen Educate sent out. And there is a phonics glossary there for you. It includes all sorts of different resources and practical ideas. And also, as I said, the key terminology explained for you there. So it's a really good resource. And I do apologise if you've not yet received that resource pack. It will be coming out to you today. And as I said, there's some really sort of useful resources within that pack for you to use on the ground, in the classroom, with the children. Thank you, Ross. Again, this is an information sharing slide, really, just taking it directly from the national curriculum. And this is where our children need to be by the end of reception. No pressure. They should read and understand some sentences, use phonics knowledge to decode regular words. They should also recognise irregular words. Our English language is extremely complex. They should demonstrate an understanding of what they have read. Thank you, Ross. Next one. Moving on to year one. My daughter's in year 2 now, and obviously she's missed a huge part of year 1. So there are some aspects of this that I worry about. I won't read all that for you, colleagues. That's just for your information. Just give you a moment. It does refer to common exception words there for you. And again, within that resource pack, I apologise if you've not yet received it. Promise that you will do. There is a list of common exception words, or tricky words that we like to call them, for our year 1 curriculum there for you to draw upon. Next slide, thank you, Ross. Just look at where our children need to be before they enter Key Stage 2. Really important we understand that progression across the phase, the key stage, and across year groups. Thank you, Ross. So at this point, I was going to ask us all to share ideas, but I actually feel like we've been doing that throughout the workshop. So I really appreciate everybody giving each other tips and ideas and support. It's just fantastic to be part of that. So thank you very much. But what I will say at this point is that the evidence of teaching phonics is indisputable. The Education Endowment Foundation considers phonics to be the most secure area of pedagogy. And here's some stats for you. In 2016, 82% of children achieved the expected standard in the phonics screening test, compared to 58% in 2012. So 82% compared to 58 just a number of years ago. And for the disadvantaged pupils, I've just broken it down and looked into that. In 2012, 45% of disadvantaged pupils achieved expected in year 1 in the phonics screening test. A number of years later, in 2016, 71% of our disadvantaged pupils, who come across all sorts of different things, a lack of consistency, a lack of role models, a lack of language development, a lack of exposure to talk, 71% in 2016, and now at that expected level. So I go back to phonics as an approach is undisputable. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to watch a snippet from a phonics lesson. I appreciate it's not the whole lesson, but it does give you at the beginning an idea of the context in which this teacher is working. He's working with children who sort of struggle academically, and he's looking at a specific sound. And after all we've just been talking about and the recommendations that we've gained from Ofsted and all of the chat that's been fantastic, what I want you to think about is what went well and even better if, okay? So let me just say that again. And I really would appreciate this if we could actually unmute individuals. And if you want to talk at the end of this snippet, just write in the box, I would like to talk. So this is an opportunity for us, colleagues, to really specifically look at strategies that this teacher draws upon during this phonics lesson and how the children respond and engage and how the teacher is assessing those children's needs and how those individual children are being catered for. So I go back to this activity is about us evaluating practice, and we are thinking about what went well within the lesson and even better if. In other words, how could this practice be further improved so that children make even more progress? So what went well and even better if. Thank you, Ross.
So this is a Year 1 Bottom Mobility SEN Phonics group. Today we will be looking at the O sound, and this is the children's first lesson learning this new sound. So today we'll be doing a range of activities. We'll be learning to spell using thread fingers to help us, and we'll also be holding a sentence from the book that we're looking at, which is called Elvis. And so we'll be using a range of strategies. We'll be trying to get the children active visual clues as well, and actions to go with everything that we're doing. So by the end of this session, I hope the children can recognise the O sound and can start to blend words with the O sound in them. The aim is to ensure that every child is engaged and are active at all parts of the lesson. So by using lots of talk partners and lots of peer and self-assessment ensures that all the children are active at all times in the lesson. We've got those special friends. So now we are going to try and spell some words with the, what sound? Oh, tell your partner we're going to spell with the O words. Super, and look this way. So I'm going to show you how we would spell home. So look this way. O, So, O, special friends, home. So we are going to go back to our tables and we are going to write some words with the O sound. Do you think you can do this? Yeah. Oh, super. And the first word we're going to do, so hold your fingers in front of your face, is going to be, everyone hold your fingers. Everyone hold your fingers. O, O, Now you sound out on your fingers. Super. And count with me. 5, 4. Let's sound it out together. Home. Now you write the word. Home. Yes, of course. So that's the O. So O. High five, Harry. That's the next one. Are you ready? O. 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 Now you try and sound out on your fingers. O. So the snake, slither down the snake. So O. Rose. O. And count with me. 5, 4. Let's sound it out together. O. Rose. Superb. Now try and write the word rose.
Thank you, Ross. Okay, so as I said, I really would appreciate it if somebody would like to talk. Anybody, if you would like to just share your ideas, type in, I would like to talk. Anybody brave enough? Okay, we've got Diane, we've got Evelyn, we've got Diana. Ross, can we unmute Diana? Hi, Diana.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Hello.
Good. That was pretty interesting. He was quite enthusiastic. However, I think I would have given more, I would have personally done more examples of the OE word, the special friends. I would have given more examples. I think he never had any visuals, if I'm correct. which could have been quite beneficial for the children to visualize and to understand at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I agree, actually. You know, it's little things to engage children in, isn't it? That additional visual resource in order to further engage perhaps those children that are less confident or less willing, really, to engage within the lesson. But I agree, he had a lovely mannerism with the children. He has obviously a good subject knowledge there as well, which is all really good. But
Yeah.
actually, more could have been done in terms of that visual sort of representation as well.
I mean, and of course, there's only a snippet of the video that you can see. You don't know if there's any assistants there or any teaching assistants to assist him. But I don't think he could have been able to manage every child individually, you know, for them to reach their full potential in that one lesson.
Amazing. Thank you, Diana. Much appreciated. Let's have somebody else. Just one more person. Evelyn. Thank you, Evelyn.
Sorry, I agree with the lady that just spoke now. The lesson was good, but no visual, and also I think some of the children also were not like engaging. They would have been more beneficial if there was like a teaching assistant there also to support the teacher.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, that's a really luxury sort of resource to have as well. Thank you for that, Evelyn. I really appreciate that. What I would say is that actually looking back at sort of the recommendations that we should be doing in terms of high quality teaching, was there enough consolidation of previous learning? Can children automatically sort of access that and use that sort of practice and apply of that consolidation of learning? And is the new learning sort of active enough for those children, active learners, or are they passive learners? These are all the kind of questions that we should be asking ourselves when we're teaching very young children like that. How can we make sure that our activities are highly practical and efficient and focused? Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate all of your thoughts there, and thank you to the two colleagues that spoke up and shared their ideas. Thank you. Taylor, thank you. Okay, so this is my final slide. I really hope that you found some parts of this useful, and I really feel like it's been a collaborative workshop actually today, even just through your comments through the chat. Just to summarise, in Ofsted's world, effective intervention and tutoring, which many of you are now part of, is all about good subject knowledge of both teachers and TAs. It's about the creative use of well-designed resources and activities that help children to generate enthusiasm and enjoyment. It's about effective modelling and pronunciation by teachers and teaching assistants. That modelling of language is absolutely crucial. It's about finding those good links. It's about providing effective use of phonics to support children in the early stages of acquiring English. It's about ongoing assessment and pace in lessons. And it's about differentiation, using that information from our assessments effectively to ensure that teaching is matched to the individual need. As I said to you, there is a pack. In that pack, there is common exception words, there is a phonics glossary, there is a piece of research that I found really quite interesting that I wanted to share with you to kind of inform your thinking. You will also have been sent a Phonics Audit. That is a piece of work that's optional for you to do, and it basically takes you through the phonics scheme and all of the different kind of elements of teaching phonics, and it allows you to identify your areas of strength when teaching phonics, and also any potential gaps in your own learning and any misconceptions in your own learning. And then we'll identify those areas so that then you can go off and sort of do your own personal research and revision. The other thing that's been sent out is a learning and development booklet, which is a more general sort of analysis of key up-to-date elements of education at the moment, and we'll give you sort of a reading list around different aspects of our work, including behaviour management, catering for individual needs. It's sort of a more broad topic base, but it's very much up to date with educational reform at the moment. So I do hope that you find that document useful as well. I'm very conscious of time, Ross. Okay, so any particular questions at this point? Let's have a look. What do we do if we enter a school and they aren't using one of the phonics schemes on the list? As a tutor or a supply professional, actually it is up to the school. They are, that senior leadership team is responsible for ensuring high quality early reading and reading development is taking place during that school. So actually I wouldn't concern yourself too much. If you do develop those core relationships, those key relationships with teachers and perhaps the English lead, it might be useful for you to pinpoint those particular programs to that individual. Very much depends on relationships there. Are any phonics schemes better than others? To be honest, I would rather you go and do some personal research about that. It's really useful if you're on Facebook to join specific groups, and those are the people, colleagues that are actually practicing those programs on the ground. So yeah, make the informed decision by liaising with people that have actually got real first-hand experience of those different programs. Somebody put a question on before about children in Key Stage 2 who come to school with very little English. What do we do? How do we encourage those children to engage and develop an understanding of phonics when they have no English or very little English? For me, that is about providing children with explicit modelling of language. It is about us as professionals ensuring that our pronunciation of the spoken language is correct and clear and concise, and constantly providing those opportunities for children to perhaps work closely with their cross-cultural peers and that collaboration, as well as providing those children with visual cues and pictures and those opportunities to experience poetry, repetitive songs, creative, simplistic, phonetical texts, and perhaps using that opportunity to celebrate dual language. You know, where does their language and their culture fit in within the classroom, and celebrate that. Okay, I'm really conscious of time, Ross, and oh, thank you so much for that feedback. That's lovely. I want to say I really hope that you find the resource pack useful that's coming to you if you've not already got it. Lots of practical information and support and resources within that pack, and also some theoretical evidence-based information for you to kind of underpin that practical application. As Ross mentioned, I will be back on the 12th of October to think about actually how do we move learners on to make them more competent and proficient, fluent readers. And we're going to focus specifically on reading comprehension and progression throughout key stages 1 and 2 and beyond. And all that's left to say really is thank you so much. You've made my job so much easier by, you know, being that collaborative kind of body of people, really professional and really full of knowledge and great ideas. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in with us. Thank you for Zen Educate for allowing me to do this. And a huge thank you to Ross, who without his expertise, you know, I certainly wouldn't be able to manage. So thank you, Ross, for that. And thank you.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. It was a brilliant session. Thanks very much.
All right, colleagues, you take care now, and hopefully I will see you on the 12th of October.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.